Have you ever felt like there's something inside you, something different, waiting to break free? Something that makes your heart race, your skin tingle, and your mind wander into uncharted territory? Well, hold on tight because today's story dives deep into exactly that, a world where ordinary lives collide with extraordinary secrets. Meet Alex. He's just like anyone else, working at a cozy little bookstore, stacking shelves, ringing up customers, and dreaming of adventures far beyond his small-town life. But Alex isn't just another face in the crowd. There's something about him, something he can't quite explain. It's not just the fact that he's gay or that he craves romance and connection, it's deeper than that. Every time his fingers brush against certain objects, an antique locket, an old photograph, even a dusty book, he feels strange. Like there's a spark buried beneath his skin, waiting for the right moment to ignite. And then, one fateful evening, everything changes. After closing up shop, Alex stumbles upon an ancient book tucked away in a forgotten corner. Its cover glows faintly with mysterious symbols, pulsing as if alive. Drawn by curiosity, and maybe a bit of fate, he takes it home. And that's when things get weird. As Alex flips through its pages, he accidentally triggers something, a spell, a power, a force, that sends shockwaves through his body. Suddenly, he feels something growing within him. Powerful, unfamiliar, terrifying. What is this strange sensation? Where will it lead him? And who, or what, is waiting for him on the other side of this mystery? By the end of this video, you'll find out how Alex's journey takes him from confusion to courage, from isolation to love, and from doubt to self-discovery. Trust me, you won't want to miss the twists and turns ahead. Welcome back to your channel name, where we bring you captivating stories that blend fantasy, emotion, and a touch of magic. If you're new here, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any of our thrilling tales. Stay tuned because this is only the beginning, and trust us, the best is yet to come. Alex couldn't shake the feeling that something inside him was shifting, growing. It wasn't just the physical sensations anymore, his whole world felt off kilter, as if reality itself had tilted slightly out of alignment. The book sat on his kitchen table, its faint glow now dimmed, but its presence loomed large in his thoughts. He stared at it, half expecting it to pulse or hum again, but it remained still, almost mocking him with its silence. The next morning, Alex woke up exhausted. His sleep had been restless, filled with dreams he couldn't quite remember but left him uneasy all the same. As he got ready for work, he noticed small things. His reflection in the mirror seemed sharper somehow, his movements more fluid. When he reached for his keys, they slipped from his fingers and hovered midair for a split second before falling back into his palm. Startled, Alex dropped them entirely this time, his heart pounding. "What is happening to me?" he whispered to himself, gripping the edge of the counter. That's when he decided he needed help. Not just anyone's help, a professional who might actually understand what was going on. After some frantic online searches about unexplained phenomena and supernatural occurrences, Alex came across a name: Drive. Evan Hart. Known for handling unusual cases that other doctors dismissed as psychosomatic or outright impossible, Evan seemed like Alex's only hope. Without wasting another moment, Alex called the clinic and booked an appointment. The clinic was tucked away on a quiet street, its exterior unassuming yet inviting. Inside, soft lighting bathed the waiting area, and the air smelled faintly of lavender. Alex fidgeted in his seat, clutching the strap of his bag tightly as he waited. When the receptionist finally called his name, he stood quickly, nearly knocking over a magazine rack in his haste. Dr. Evan's office was warm and comforting, lined with shelves of books and framed certificates. Behind the desk sat Evan himself, tall and poised, with sharp features softened by a kind smile. His piercing eyes met Alex's immediately, and for a brief second, Alex forgot how to breathe. "Alex," Evan said warmly, gesturing for him to sit. "Tell me what brings you here." Alex hesitated, unsure where to start. How could he explain something he barely understood himself? But Evan's calm demeanor put him at ease, and slowly, haltingly, Alex began to recount everything: the glowing book, the tingling sensation, the strange incidents since then. To his surprise, Evan didn't look skeptical. Instead, his expression grew thoughtful, almost intrigued. "I see," Evan murmured after a pause. Leaning forward slightly, he asked, "May I examine you?" Nodding nervously, Alex extended his hand. Evan took it gently, his touch sending a jolt through Alex's arm, not painful, but electric. For a long moment, Evan was silent, his brow furrowed in concentration. Then he released Alex's hand and leaned back in his chair. "It's too big to be normal," Evan said quietly, his voice carrying both awe and concern. "What does that mean?" Alex asked, his voice trembling. Evan hesitated before answering. "It means whatever power you've awakened, it's far beyond anything I've encountered before. And it's growing stronger every day." Alex swallowed hard, his mind reeling. Before he could respond, Evan added, "But don't worry. We'll figure this out together." Their eyes met again, and for the first time since finding the book, Alex felt a flicker of hope. There was something in Evan's gaze, confidence, yes, but also something deeper, something Alex couldn't quite name. Whatever it was, it made him feel safe, even amidst the chaos swirling around him. As the appointment drew to a close, Evan promised to run further tests and research possible explanations. Alex thanked him profusely, grateful not only for the doctor's expertise but also for his patience and understanding. As he walked out of the clinic, Alex realized he hadn't felt this connected to someone in years. Something about Evan lingered in his thoughts, refusing to fade, even as the weight of his situation pressed heavily on his shoulders. Little did Alex know, this meeting was only the beginning. Over the next few days, Alex found himself thinking about Evan more than he cared to admit. It wasn't just the way the doctor had handled his bizarre situation with such calm authority, it was something deeper, something Alex couldn't quite put into words. Every time their eyes had met during that first meeting, Alex felt a spark, like an invisible thread pulling him closer. But there was no time to dwell on those feelings. His body continued to change in ways that were both thrilling and terrifying. At night, Alex would lie awake, staring at the ceiling as strange sensations coursed through him. Sometimes it felt like energy pooling in his chest, other times like electricity crackling beneath his skin. Objects around his apartment began reacting to his presence, lights flickering when he walked by, books sliding off shelves without being touched. Once, while trying to pour himself a glass of water, the faucet turned on by itself, startling him so badly he nearly dropped the glass. He tried to control it, to rein it in, but the power inside him seemed to have a mind of its own. When Alex returned to the clinic for his follow-up appointment, Evan greeted him with the same warmth as before. But this time, there was an intensity in his gaze that hadn't been there initially. As they sat down together, Evan wasted no time getting to the point. "I've done some research," Evan began, leaning forward slightly. "Based on what you've described, and what I sensed during our last meeting, I believe your encounter with that book awakened something latent within you. Something magical." Alex blinked, unsure if he'd heard correctly. "Magical? Like actual magic?" Evan nodded, his expression serious. "Yes. Though it's not the kind of magic you see in fairy tales or movies. This is ancient, raw energy tied directly to your soul. You're what we call a conduit, someone who channels powerful forces beyond human comprehension." The words hit Alex like a thunderclap. Part of him wanted to laugh, to dismiss it as absurd. But deep down, he knew Evan was telling the truth. Everything made sense now, the tingling sensations, the glowing symbols, the inexplicable events surrounding him. Still, the enormousness of it all left him reeling. "But why me?" Alex asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "Why did this happen to me?" Evan hesitated, as though choosing his words carefully. "That's a question I don't have all the answers to yet. What I do know is that your awakening wasn't random. That book chose you for a reason. And whatever lies ahead, you'll need guidance to navigate it." For a moment, neither of them spoke. The weight of Evan's words hung heavy in the air, mingling with the unspoken tension between them. Finally, Alex broke the silence. "What happens now?" "Now," Evan said, standing up and motioning for Alex to follow, "we start training. You can't let this power run wild. It could harm you, or worse, others. I'll teach you how to control it." They moved to a small, soundproof room adjacent to Evan's office. It was sparsely furnished, with nothing but a chair and a low table holding a single candle. Evan instructed Alex to sit across from him and close his eyes. At first, Alex felt ridiculous, sitting cross-legged in near darkness while Evan guided him through breathing exercises. But as minutes passed, he began to feel something, a warmth spreading through his chest, steady and soothing. Focus on that feeling, Evan murmured. Let it guide you. Imagine it flowing through your veins, filling every part of you. Alex obeyed, letting the warmth grow until it became almost unbearable. Suddenly, the candle on the table flared to life, its flame burning brightly despite the lack of wind. Startled, Alex opened his eyes, only to find Evan smiling at him. You did that, Evan said simply. Not bad for a first attempt. A mix of pride and disbelief washed over Alex. For the first time since discovering his powers, he felt a glimmer of control. Over the next hour, Evan taught him basic techniques to harness and direct his energy. By the end of the session, Alex managed to extinguish the candle's flame with a mere thought. Exhausted but exhilarated, he thanked Evan profusely. As they packed up, Evan hesitated, then said, "There's one more thing you should know. This power, it's not just physical. It's emotional too. The stronger your connection to someone, the stronger your abilities become around them." Alex froze, his heart skipping a beat. Was Evan implying what he thought he was? Before he could ask, Evan added, almost casually, "Which is why I need you to trust me completely. We're in this together, Alex." The words lingered long after Alex left the clinic. On the surface, Evan's statement sounded professional, practical even. But Alex couldn't shake the feeling that there was more beneath the surface, something Evan wasn't saying. Whatever it was, Alex knew one thing for certain. His life was changing in ways he never imagined, and Evan was becoming an integral part of that change. As the days turned into weeks, Alex's training with Evan became a lifeline. Each session brought new discoveries about his powers, how to focus them, how to channel them, and most importantly, how to keep them from spiraling out of control. But as Alex grew stronger, so did the unease gnawing at the edges of his mind. Something felt off. It wasn't just the weight of carrying this secret or the fear of what might happen if he lost control again. It was something darker, lurking in the shadows. One evening, after a particularly grueling practice session, Alex walked home feeling drained but accomplished. He had managed to create a small orb of light that hovered steadily above his palm, a feat Evan called remarkable progress. Yet, as he turned the corner onto his street, a chill ran down his spine. The air felt heavier than usual, charged with an energy that made his skin prickle. At first, he thought it was just exhaustion playing tricks on him, but then he saw it, a black car parked outside his apartment building, its engine idling silently. Two figures stepped out, both dressed in dark suits that seemed too formal for the neighborhood. Their faces were blank, unreadable, but their eyes locked onto Alex with unnerving precision. For a moment, time froze. Then one of them spoke, his voice cold and clipped. "Alexander Carter." Alex's heart slammed against his ribs. "Who's asking?" The man didn't answer. Instead, he reached into his jacket, pulling out a badge that glinted under the dim streetlight. "We need to talk." Panic surged through Alex, but before he could react, the second figure moved closer, blocking his path. Instinctively, Alex raised his hand, the same way he'd done during training. A burst of energy shot out, knocking the nearest man backward. The other lunged forward, grabbing Alex's arm. Pain exploded in his chest as the connection between them disrupted his power, sending shockwaves rippling through his body. Just as darkness began to creep into the edges of his vision, a familiar voice cut through the chaos. "Let him go." Evan appeared seemingly out of nowhere, his presence commanding yet calm. In one fluid motion, he stepped between Alex and the intruders, his stance protective. To Alex's astonishment, the men hesitated, exchanging wary glances before backing away. "This isn't over," one of them muttered, glaring at Evan. Then they retreated to their car and sped off into the night. For several moments, neither Alex nor Evan moved. The adrenaline coursing through Alex's veins left him trembling, his breath coming in ragged gasps. Finally, Evan turned to him, his expression grim. "Are you okay?" he asked, placing a steadying hand on Alex's shoulder. Alex nodded, though his mind raced with questions. Who were they? What did they want from me? Evan sighed, running a hand through his hair. "They're part of the Order, the organization I told you about. They've been monitoring people like you for centuries, claiming it's for the greater good. But their methods, let's just say they're not always ethical." Anger flared in Alex's chest. "And you didn't think to mention this sooner." "I didn't want to scare you," Evan admitted, his tone tinged with guilt. But now they know about you, and they won't stop until they get what they want. What did they want? Alex demanded, his voice rising. To study you. To contain you. Maybe even neutralize you if they deem your powers too dangerous. Evan's words landed like a punch to the gut. That's why we need to leave. Now. Leave. The idea sent a fresh wave of panic crashing over Alex. Leave his home, his job, everything he'd ever known. But as he looked into Evan's determined eyes, he realized there was no other choice. If staying meant risking capture, or worse, he would go wherever Evan led him. Within hours, they were packed and on the road, driving toward an unknown destination. The silence between them was heavy, filled with unspoken fears and unresolved tension. Alex stared out the window, watching the city fade into rolling countryside. His mind replayed the events of the night, each memory sharper and more unsettling than the last. They'll come after us, won't they? Alex finally asked, breaking the quiet. Yes, Evan replied without hesitation. But we'll be ready. Alex nodded, though doubt lingered in his chest. Ready or not, he knew one thing for certain, his life would never be the same. Whatever lay ahead, he couldn't face it alone, and somehow, that thought brought him a strange sense of comfort. The days that followed were a blur of highways, motels, and whispered conversations. Alex and Evan traveled light, moving from one nondescript town to the next, always staying one step ahead, or so they hoped. The constant running left Alex physically drained but emotionally raw. For the first time in his life, he was truly untethered, cut off from everything familiar. Yet, paradoxically, he'd never felt more connected, to Evan, to his own power, and to the growing realization that he couldn't run forever. One evening, as they pulled into yet another roadside diner, Alex finally broke the silence that had settled between them like a thick fog. How long can we keep doing this? He asked, his voice tinged with frustration. We can't just run indefinitely. Evan glanced at him, his expression unreadable. No, we can't, he admitted. But we need time to prepare. To figure out how to fight back. Fight back, Alex echoed, incredulous. Against an entire organization. You make it sound so simple. It's not simple, Evan said sharply, then softened. But it's necessary. They won't stop until they've taken everything from you, your freedom, your identity, maybe even your life. Do you understand what's at stake here? Alex looked away, his jaw tightening. Of course he understood. He'd seen the cold determination in those men's eyes, felt the suffocating weight of their intentions. But understanding didn't make it any easier to accept. As if sensing his turmoil, Evan reached across the table, his hand brushing against Alex's. The touch was brief, fleeting, but it sent a jolt through Alex's body, a reminder of the bond that had grown between them, fragile yet unshakable. We're not alone in this, Evan continued. There are others like you, people who've been hunted, experimented on, forced to live in hiding. If we find them, if we unite, we might stand a chance. Hope flickered faintly in Alex's chest, though it was tempered by skepticism. And where do we start looking for these people? Evan hesitated before answering. There's someone I know, an old friend. She's different, like you. She might be able to help us. With no other options, Alex agreed, and they set off toward a remote cabin nestled deep in the woods. The journey was long and tense, every rustle of leaves or distant sound making Alex jump. When they finally arrived, the sight of the cabin brought a strange sense of relief. It was small and weathered, surrounded by towering trees that seemed to shield it from the outside world. Inside, they found her, a woman named Lila, with sharp green eyes and an air of quiet intensity. She listened intently as Evan explained their situation, her gaze occasionally darting to Alex. When Evan finished, she leaned back in her chair, crossing her arms. You're playing a dangerous game, she said bluntly. The order doesn't take kindly to defiance. We don't have a choice, Evan shot back. They already know about Alex. Staying hidden isn't an option anymore. Lila studied them for a moment longer, then nodded. All right, I'll help. But you should know, they're stronger than you think. And they're watching. Her words hung heavily in the air, but Alex refused to let fear consume him. Over the next few days, Lila trained him alongside Evan, pushing him harder than ever before. She taught him advanced techniques to hone his powers, showing him how to manipulate energy in ways he hadn't thought possible. Under her guidance, Alex discovered new depths to his abilities, strengths he didn't know he possessed. But the training wasn't just physical, it was emotional too. Lila pushed Alex to confront his fears, to dig deep into the parts of himself he'd spent years burying. One night, after an especially grueling session, she cornered him. Outside the cabin. "You're holding back," she said, her voice firm but not unkind. "I don't know what you're afraid of losing, but trust me, it's worse to lose yourself." Her words struck a nerve, forcing Alex to face the truth he'd been avoiding. He had spent so much of his life feeling different, feeling broken. But now, surrounded by people who understood him, not just his powers, but him, he began to see himself differently. For the first time, he allowed himself to imagine a future where he wasn't defined by fear. The turning point came one morning when Alex woke up to find Evan sitting by the window, staring out at the forest. His shoulders were slumped, his usual confidence replaced by something heavier. Concerned, Alex joined him. "What's wrong?" Alex asked gently. Evan sighed, rubbing his temples. "I got you into this mess. If I hadn't involved myself, maybe they wouldn't have found you." "That's not true," Alex said firmly. "They would have come for me eventually. Besides," he paused, choosing his words carefully. "You saved me. More than once. I wouldn't be here without you." Evan turned to look at him, surprise flickering in his eyes. Then, slowly, a small smile tugged at the corners of his lips. "Thank you," he murmured. In that moment, something shifted between them. The tension that had lingered since their escape began to dissolve, replaced by a quiet understanding. Whatever happened next, they would face it together. By the time they left the cabin, Alex felt transformed, not just in his powers but in his resolve. He knew the road ahead would be fraught with danger, but he also knew he wasn't alone. With Evan by his side, and Lila's promise of support, they prepared to take the fight to the Order. Little did they know, the battle would come sooner than expected. The confrontation came on a cold, moonless night, the kind where shadows seemed to stretch endlessly and silence pressed heavily against the world. Alex, Evan, and Lila had been tracking the Order's movements for days, piecing together fragments of information until they pinpointed a location, an abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of town. It wasn't much, but it was enough. As they approached, Alex could feel his power surging unpredictably, responding to the tension in the air. His palms tingled, energy crackling faintly beneath his skin. Beside him, Evan gripped a small device Lila had rigged, a disruptor meant to interfere with the Order's technology. For once, there was no trace of calm in Evan's demeanor. His jaw was set, his eyes sharp with determination. Even Lila, who had always seemed untouchable, looked uneasy. "This is it," she whispered as they crouched behind a crumbling wall just outside the warehouse. "Once we go in, there's no turning back." Alex nodded, though his heart pounded so loudly he was sure the others could hear it. He glanced at Evan, whose gaze met his briefly. There was no need for words, everything they needed to say passed between them in that single moment. Then, without hesitation, they moved forward. Inside, the warehouse was dimly lit, its vast interior cluttered with rusted machinery and stacks of crates. The hum of generators filled the space, masking their footsteps as they crept closer to the center. That's when they saw them, the members of the Order gathered around a glowing orb suspended in midair. Its light pulsed rhythmically, like a heartbeat, and Alex immediately felt drawn to it, as if it were calling out to him. "They're using it to track conduits," Evan murmured. "If we destroy it, we cut off their ability to find people like you." Before they could act, one of the figures turned, spotting them. An alarm blared, shattering the fragile quiet. Chaos erupted instantly. Figures in dark suits swarmed toward them, weapons raised. Alex reacted instinctively, throwing up a barrier of energy that deflected the first wave of attacks. Beside him, Evan activated the disruptor, sending sparks flying through the air as systems failed and lights flickered. "Go!" Lila shouted, taking down two attackers with a burst of telekinetic force. "We'll hold them off." Evan hesitated for only a second before grabbing Alex's hand and pulling him toward the orb. Together, they fought their way through the chaos, dodging blows and retaliating with bursts of energy. Each step felt like an eternity, every movement weighed down by adrenaline and fear. But Alex didn't falter, not this time. This was his fight, his destiny, and he refused to let anyone, or anything, stand in his way. When they finally reached the orb, Alex placed his hands on it, feeling its power surge through him. It was overwhelming, intoxicating, but he focused all his energy into dismantling it. The orb resisted at first, its light flaring brighter as if fighting back. But then Evan joined him, placing his hands over Alex's. Their combined strength pushed against the orb's defenses until, with a deafening crack, it shattered into 1,000 pieces. The effect was immediate. The remaining members of the Order froze, disoriented, as their equipment sputtered and died. Around them, the warehouse began to collapse, destabilized by the destruction of the orb. Without a word, Alex and Evan turned and ran, weaving through debris and smoke until they reached the exit. Outside, Lila was waiting, battered but alive. She gave them a nod of approval before leading them away from the crumbling building. They didn't stop running until they were far enough to watch the warehouse crumble entirely, reduced to nothing more than a pile of rubble. For a long moment, none of them spoke. They simply stood there, breathing hard, absorbing what had just happened. Finally, Alex broke the silence. "It's over," he said, his voice trembling with exhaustion and relief. Evan stepped closer, resting a hand on Alex's shoulder. "Not completely. There will always be other threats. But tonight, we won." Alex looked at him, really looked at him, and realized how far they'd come. From the day they'd met in that clinic to this very moment, their journey had been one of trust, sacrifice, and growth. And while the road ahead might still be uncertain, Alex knew one thing for certain: he wasn't alone anymore. As dawn broke over the horizon, painting the sky in hues of gold and pink, Alex felt a sense of peace settle over him. Whatever challenges lay ahead, he would face them, not because he had to, but because he wanted to. Because now, for the first time in his life, he truly believed in himself. And maybe, just maybe, that was enough. As the dust settles and Alex steps into this new chapter of his life, one thing becomes crystal clear: every journey begins with a single spark. Whether it's embracing who you are, finding strength in unexpected places, or trusting the people who stand by you, these moments shape us in ways we never see coming. If this story resonated with you, if you've ever felt like there's something inside you waiting to break free, then don't let that fire fade. Keep exploring, keep growing, and most importantly, keep believing in yourself. Because just like Alex, you have the power to rewrite your own story. And hey, if you enjoyed this tale of magic, love, and self-discovery, make sure to hit that subscribe button so you never miss another adventure. Leave a comment below telling us what your favorite part was, or share this video with someone who might need a little inspiration today. Thank you for joining us on this journey. Until next time, remember, the extraordinary is often closer than you think. You just have to take the first step.